start with the fact that it's not the 1960s, says our next guest, and let him expand on that, and that would be Dave Weinberg. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well, Pete. Fighting the cold like everybody else, it seems like, but otherwise I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I had said even before I knew, I'm sorry you're fighting that cold, even before I knew that you were not 100%, I knew that this was not golfing weather for you, and my car said 17 degrees as I turned it over this morning.
I'm going to have to wait a day or two, I think.
So what are you talking about when you say it's not the 1960s? You don't think they're going to get beaten, or you're just saying, like, dude, get out of the 60s, it's 2020?
Correct. I mean, I have a ton of respect for Larry Bowe. He's one of my favorite players and managers, but this is not the days when you can just, throw it at hitters' heads and, Bob Gibson just, dropping people because they, dug in too close to the plate. And it's just not that time anymore. I mean, those guys will be – any pitcher that does that's going to face a suspension or an ejection as soon as they throw that first beanball. It's not that's not the way to do things in today's major leagues. I mean, obviously, they believe that the Astros should face some sort of punishment for what they did, but going after their, risking their health and livelihoods is not the way to go about it.
So did you watch the press conference with Altuve, or did you see some of those clips go by and shake your head like most people do? I mean, there was a real dichotomy there between, you could tell that they had been coached and rehearsed on say this, but don't say this. And yet at the same time, I think the general response from most people was very much like, they didn't say what we wanted to hear them say.
Yeah, they kind of danced around it, so to speak. A lot like, I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw bits and pieces. And they were very much, they were very careful about, and couched about, what they were going to admit to, what they did and what they didn't do. But it was like a typical press conference where, you want to make sure that you don't get in too much hot water or I guess they're kind of hoping that this thing's just going to blow over after a while, after a few days of spring training. But I'm not sure that's the case. I think it's going to hang around for a while.
I mean, everywhere they play this season, every road series that they have. And by the way, the Phillies do play the Astros in 2020. However, it's in Houston. It's not in Philadelphia. So if you were looking for some great Philadelphia fan moment where, remember they had the sign when Barry Bonds came the one time and they held up the sign in left field that said Babe Ruth did it with hot dogs and beer. If you're looking for,
I was actually at that game. Yep. I remember it vividly. Yep.
So there are good Philly moments where we're not throwing batteries or snowballs at Santa Claus, but that if you're looking for that moment, that's not going to happen. Phillies play at the Astros this year, but I very much, and then there's this point too, and Mike McGarry made it in the first hour that this could actually maybe be good for baseball. Now you have a true villain, and every time they go and play somewhere, that might get more eyeballs on a sport that is struggling in the ratings and struggling to get attendance.
I'm not so sure that's the case, but baseball definitely needs more attention. The ratings have been dropping, attendance has been falling year by year. I don't know that anointing someone the villain is necessarily the best way to go about it. There's 31 other teams that that they have to find a way to draw more fans and more attention to their teams. So I'm not sure that's the way, but I guess any kind of subplot you get is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, like you said, it does draw a little bit more attention to the sport, but I think they've a lot more work to do to grow this game and make it popular again.
So let's expand on that a little bit. Where would you like to see changes to make the and do you think it'll ever be America's pastime again the way that it was? Because I don't think so.
No, unfortunately not. I mean, I don't know if you did, but I grew up as a baseball person. That was the sport that I watched as a kid. It was on every Saturday with Kurt Gowdy and Tony Kubek, and you saw the Phillies and the Mets and the Yankees every day, pretty much. There was no social media, no computers to take your attention away, and video games and what have you. But I think that the baseball lost a generation, and I don't know that you're ever going to be able to get those fans back once you've lost them. There are some things they can do. I think speeding up the game for one would help. I mean, not to I'm probably dating myself here a little bit, but the Bridgeton Invitational Tournament was renowned for, having pitch clocks you got and having so much time before getting in and off the field. A lot of other twists and turns that they had in their tournament that made sure that they sped up the game, and I think that major leagues could. I mean, I know they've done it to a degree already, but I think they just have to be able to find a way to keep those games under 3 hours.
Yeah, and of course the biggest rule change that they're going to put in now is that minimum of 3 hitters before the team can make a pitching change. And the purists, they did not like that at all, but they're trying to speed up the game. And will this work?
I hope so. I mean, I actually think it's a good idea. I don't understand why you need a pitcher to come in, throw one pitch, then you make a change, and another guy comes in, faces one batter, then another guy comes in, faces another batter. That's stupid to me. I mean, I know it's part of the strategy of the game, but how about you let a starter go 9 innings once in a while? Maybe that would speed up the game.
No doubt. Here's a recap of some of these rule changes, by the way. The 3-batter minimum's the big one, but rosters are going to go from 25 to 26 players during the regular season and postseason, maximum of 13 pitches. That 40-man, we've always talked about the 40-man. September rosters are now going to be limited to 28 players with a maximum of 14 pitchers. Teams can designate 2-way players. They won't count toward the pitcher limitations on rosters. They have to have a whole bunch of stipulations to go with that. And then remember Wilson Valdez, right? There are limitations now on when a position player can pitch. Now they can only pitch if their team is behind by 6 or more runs, or if a game is in extra innings. And managers have 20 seconds instead of 30 to challenge the call on the field. So
that must be the Gabe Kapler rule, huh? With the using position players.
Yeah, Gabe. How about Andy McPhail coming out and say, it sounds like Andy McPhail still is trying to defend Gabe or how he handled the Gabe situation. Gabe's in San Francisco. What are you talking about that for?
Yeah, that's true. You might as well move on. You got Joe Girardi, one of the best, in recent history at least. He's in your dugout now, so you might as well just let Gabe go ahead and do what he's going to do out in San Francisco and move on, like you said.
Well, we're spending some time with Dave Weinberg, 97.3 ESPN columnist. He's got got a couple extra points columns up, new fresh ones that I want to dive into. And one of the things, here we are, Dave, having a conversation about getting eyeballs on baseball and making sure they can get decent ratings and attendance. And your one column is about the XFL. Somewhere He Hate Me is thinking, can I get some residuals for this? I mean, the XFL is off to a pretty decent start.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might have discussed it last week. I was quietly encouraged about it. I watched the games on Saturday. Sunday I had more family time things that I had to do, but Saturday I just thought that was a very entertaining product. I think most of those teams are doing the right thing by playing in soccer stadiums as opposed to NFL stadiums, where you have the more the smaller but more intimate crowd. It's kind of like on top of the action, and I thought the quality play was a little. You could tell they hadn't played in a little bit, but I thought it was a higher brand than certainly the AAF and even maybe the Arena League. I guess it was just. I thought they did very well for their first week, and it looks like they're going about it the right way. I love their the way they interact with TV viewers and fans. I just think that's fantastic. The way that they involve the fans in the game. As far as you can listen to the coach calling the plays. Yeah, if you're actually in the replay booth with the guy who is reviewing the plays. I just think it's the more they can do to get fans involved in the game, I think the better off they're going to be.
Dave Weinberg with us. A full disclosure, I hadn't read all the way through your column yet. You have He Hate Me on the bottom there, which and you and I have more in common than you know. I was locked into Pebble Beach. I probably watched a very good amount of the third round and was clicking back and forth between two things to watch the final round. That's on the top of my bucket list, playing Pebble. When I was in Nebraska, I think at the time, I played a course called Sandpiper, which is in Goleta, kind of near Santa Barbara, and they have somewhere like 7 or 8 holes that border the water, and they call it the poor man's Pebble Beach. Now, at the time, I probably paid $100 or $115 to play that course in the 90s, which was a lot of money. And
Sure.
I have no idea what it is now, but I know it's not 500 or 600. And you don't have to stay at Sandpiper. So if you're ever looking for a Pebble alternative that you can't get on Pebble, Sandpiper is what it's called, and it's out there. And of course, you write about Half Moon Bay. I know you have a love affair with that place. So Dave Weinberg's column is Extra Points, right? Yeah, go ahead. You can give Half Moon Bay a little props.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's probably my favorite course that I've played so far, and I've played a lot of them, including Pine Valley. But there's just something about being on the water that just makes it so magical for me. And I also played. I don't know if I mentioned it in the column, but I played Pacific Grove, which is a few miles away from Pebble Beach. But the entire back nine is on the Pacific Ocean, and it was like $50, I think, to play.
Yeah, you did mention it there. You said it's 8 miles north and $400 cheaper.
Yeah, there you go.
We got to get. Have you played in Scotland or Ireland?
I have not, and I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but I have absolutely no desire to do that.
Aha!
Zero.
Now that's interesting because here's the deal. First and foremost, I was very fortunate to go. I went to Scotland in 1998, and I went to Ireland in 2002. So I had more hair. There was less weight in my belly. I could actually swing a wood. It was a long time ago. But the tour company that ran the golfing excursions was out of Cape May Courthouse, and they're still going. This Jerry Quinlan's, that's right in your neck of the woods, buddy. That's Cape May County. Look, Karen wants to see the Blarney Stone. Take her over there and then sneak around it.
It's weird because every time she's a huge Harry Potter fan, my wife. So, it would probably make more sense to go over to the original one, the original castle. But every time I watch the British Open, it's 40 degrees, the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour. They got 7 layers of clothes on. The rain's going sideways. There's like nothing about that appeals to me at all. And there's like Pebble Beach being one. There's so many more courses in the United States that I'd love to play before. I just have no desire to go over there and suffer like that.
Well, of course, we had some rain during this past week, and at my other job, I have to stand outside at the end of the day, and I had this gigantic Folds of Honor golf umbrella that very patriotic and has the flag on it, but it's gigantic because it's a gigantic golf umbrella. So big umbrella for a big guy, right? And as we're walking back in, one of the other teachers said to me, like, where'd you get that umbrella? I said, through golf, and I said, today's the kind of day that you wouldn't play golf unless you were in Scotland and Ireland. And that's the thing is, to your point, if you're paying the money for that vacation, you fly 3,000 miles across the pond, as they say, and you're all set up and you're on a schedule and you got to play this course in the morning and this course later on in the afternoon, you're playing 36. If it's coming down sideways, you just keep on going, mud up and put your dry joys on or whatever and try your best. But yeah, I hate playing in the rain. Look, I'm a bad enough golfer as it is. I don't need any more challenging elements.
I'm with you there, yep.
All right, Dave. So Dave Weinberg's with us, 97.3 ESPN columnist. You also are talking about boxing, and I do like to visit that topic each week because Larry Hazard, you write about, that's the New Jersey Athletic Control Board commissioner. He's going to be sitting ringside for a big fight coming up, and that fight is not here.
Right, Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, the rematch of their fight last year, I guess it was, maybe 2 years ago. But yeah, it's going to be in Las Vegas, unfortunately. And Larry is the commissioner of the New Jersey Athletic Control Board, which is the governing body for combative sports in New Jersey. But he's also serving as a guest guest judge for ESPN and Fox's pay-per-view for the fight. And yeah, he's a huge proponent of bringing big fights back to New Jersey, as am I, as I've probably maybe mentioned too often. But it's just a shame that New Jersey, it's been 6 years since they've had a big fight in Boardwalk Hall. And I'm not understanding why boxing can't be, it's never going to be as great as it was here, but I just don't know why it's not a bigger part of the sports landscape in Atlantic City.
Yeah, and you write about, and I agree with this 100%, that Boardwalk Hall did their part. I mean, the renovation that they underwent in what was it 2000, and then it reopened in 2002 to get Boardwalk Hall quote unquote modern. That pushed attendance up. That worked. And yet, as you and I go back and forth with too, and both are in concert with, unless the casinos band together, and that's what Larry put on Facebook, right? Come on, Atlantic City casinos, right? Sort of a plea from the old guard, the OG, telling the casinos, let's go.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it just seems like they're not willing to cooperate with each other anymore, or as much as they used to. They did band together, like I mentioned, for the Sergei Kovalev and Bernard Hopkins fight. They got the state involved, the CRDA put up some money, and the result was a fantastic event in 2014. Why that hasn't happened since then, I really have no idea. And even if they don't want to do it that way, then I'm quietly encouraged about the fact that Hard Rock and Ocean have both had boxing events in their properties in the last year or two. And I know there was some very quick, brief mention that about Fury and Wilder's fight coming to Hard Rock instead of Vegas. But those talks kind of fell apart relatively quickly. But I'm kind of hopeful that it seems like those two properties in particular seem to understand that boxing and MMA, for that matter, can be a pretty big source of entertainment and even revenue for them. You get enough fans in the building to, when they're done watching the fights, or they have the casino right there to play and gamble a little bit. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to put more events in there, and maybe some other casinos will see that and then start doing it as well.
From your lips to God's ears, we're spending some time with Dave Weinberg, our 97.3 ESPN columnist. His Twitter handle at Dave Weinberg 19. That's DaveWeinberg 19. Follow him on Twitter. Dave, you covered the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles for so long. Hunter and I were talking about the fact that the combine is not that far away, and the news, I saw this go by on the ticker yesterday, and then I dug into it a little bit more today. The Broncos are not sending their assistant coaches to the scouting combine. They say they'll be better use of their time by watching film in Denver. The Rams are reportedly not sending their offense and defensive coordinators because they want them to implement the new schemes. Is this a trend, and where do you stand on this? Is the combine a dog and pony show, or is it valuable?
I went to it once, and I don't care if I ever go to it again. It's the most overrated event that I can think of. The only value to it, I think, is the interview part of it, where the GMs and the coaches get to sit down with the prospects, get a feel for them as people and as players, I guess. But as far as it's always so synchronized, and who cares if you can run a 4.4 40 in shorts and a t-shirt? I want to see you with a helmet and shoulder pads with a defensive back chasing you down. Then I want to see how fast you are. I just don't. If you want to find football players, watch them play football. Go into the film room and watch how they did, in college. Then you're going to get an idea of the kind of player they are. And if you want to test them for their 40s or their bench press or whatever, then that's what the private workouts are for. I mean, they have these combines, but then every top prospect goes to a team and goes through the dog and pony show, as you call it, for private workouts for every NFL team that's interested in them. So I don't really get what the point of the combine is, other than the fact that the coaches and the GMs get to go to St. Elmo's Steakhouse every night.
Yeah, well, that could change too. And your colleague Paul Tomowicz wrote about that, and said the fact that it's the NFL wanting to feed the monster, right? Wanting to feed NFL Network and make sure they moved it to nighttime, because obviously the rate, you're doing it at 10 o'clock in the morning. People, you may not get as good a ratings. It's all television based, right? We're in a Twitter and Facebook, and what little clips can we retweet, and what can we get out there, and how much attention can we get on this? And so now they're moving it to nighttime, and all the coaches are ticked because they can't get to St. Elmo's.
And if anybody sits at home and watches that, they've got a serious issue.
They do, David. They do. People watch it and they remember it, and Eagles fans remember, like, the receiver that ran the fastest 40 time. I'm blanking on his name because it didn't look. You know who fell in love with the combine famously? Jeffrey Lurie loved Mike Mamula, right? That's the number one thing Eagles fans go to when they think about the combine, and of course that's the number one thing the detractors go to as well. Don't fall in love with how many blocks how high a guy can jump, or how quickly he is in the shuttle run, or whatever those things are.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. I'm like I said, and now it's to the point where I don't know if it's still the case, but Mamula is a perfect example of people who actually train just for the combine. They know what the tests are going to be. They know what what the drills are, and they hire personal conditioning coaches to help them improve their 40 time, to help them improve their shuttle run, to help them improve their vertical leap. None of which means anything when you get to training camp.
Yeah, I'll let you repeat your statement again. If you want to learn about a football player, do what?
Watch them play football.
100%. Dave Weinberg's been our guest here on the Pete Thompson Show as we covered his love of Scotland and Ireland golf. We covered boxing. We covered baseball, the sign-stealing scandal. I'll close with a little story for you, David. When I lived in Omaha, I got to play golf with Bob Gibson once. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
And he had a celebrity tournament out there, and so in advance, about a month out, they'd have the media come and do like a little media day, and you could play the course. And then Gibby would drive around in a golf cart, and he would play, let's say there was like 6 groups or something. He'd kind of go, it was only 9 holes, but, over the course of 9 holes, he was able to visit group to group to group and play like 1 hole with each group. And I remember being struck by the fact that this is so cool. I'm playing golf with a Baseball Hall of Famer and a baseball legend. And then the second thing I was struck by was, this guy's terrible. I'm better than him. And he was not a good golfer, but I applaud him for just, making the effort. And I remember like actually trying to give him a tip, and he asked for it. I didn't give it unsolicited because you don't do that. But he said, how can I this? And I sort of told him, a little tip, and I guess it helped. I don't know. That was one thing I take away from that about golf and Bob Gibson and tempers. But I also remember the fact that he wasn't happy with how he played, so that he just didn't want to do it. And years after he retired, Bob Gibson, like a guy cut him off on the road, and Gibson like chased him down in his car, almost like Jack Nicholson-esque with the 9-iron, chased him down in the car, caught up to him at a gas station, and just berated him for cutting him off. So, yes, it's not the 1960s, but you'll be pleased to know that for years after his playing career, Bob Gibson's temper and thermometer still ran hot.